The Derek Diamond Experience!
Welcome to another episode of the Derek Diamond Experience podcast. I'm your host, Derek Diamond, and if you haven't yet, be sure to check out both of last week's episodes, the first being my conversation with actress Amber Doig-Thorne from the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey horror film, and the second with local actor Tommy Ryan talking about his short film, The Third Division, which will be playing at this Saturday's Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social. I can't believe after weeks of talking about it and really, over a month or so of prep, it's finally here. If you're watching or listening to this the day it comes out, it is just 5 days away. You can click the link in the show notes to get your tickets. And if you want to find anything related to this podcast, you can head over to linktree.com/ddiamondpodcast. Everything from audio subscription, YouTube subscription, social media following, everything is in one location, linktree.com/ddiamondpodcast. We're going to be talking more about the Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social because one of the films included in the festival itself is the premiere of Home Policies, which is a British comedy that was filmed in Pensacola and Fort Walton Beach, written and directed by Nick Smith, who has been a guest on this show in the past. We're going to be looking at that film specifically on this week's show. Nick is going to be joining me to talk about how he's, had the idea for this film for a long time and finally got the opportunity to make it, as well as two of the actors from the film, James Poule, who you may know from a film that I've talked about a few times on this show, The Parker Syndrome, which was my first film that I wrote and directed, as well as Thomas Carter Rochester, a favorite on this show. He is one of the actors in the film as well. I had the pleasure of working behind the scenes on it as well, and we talk about our experiences in making the film. We talk about the local filmmaking community, and of course, numerous other things that came up in discussion as well. But it was really fun to really pick Nick's brain, as well as James and Thomas talking about prepping for their characters, how they didn't break character on set because it was a really fun one to be a part of, which you're going to be hearing about momentarily. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Nick, James, and Thomas. Here on this week's edition of the Derek Diamond Experience with a special behind-the-scenes look of the short film Home Policies, which will be actually premiering this Saturday at the Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social at Hellcat Hangar in Pensacola, Florida. And I've got a few of the names that were involved with the making of the film. First up, we have writer-director Mr. Nick Smith. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Good to see you, Derek.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to chat with you. We also have two of the actors from the film. We have Mr. James Poule. James, how are you, sir?
Just fine. My pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Pleasure is mine as well. And of course, we have Mr. Thomas Carter Rochester. Thomas, how are you, sir?
Hello there. I'm back like I never left.
It makes me so happy you introduced yourself that way. So, we're here to talk about Home Policies, which is a short film that all of us worked on this past summer in Pensacola and Fort Walton Beach. So, Nick, we'll start with you. How did you come up with the idea of this story?
So this has a long pedigree, this film. Actually, when I had my first production company over 20 years ago, I was writing short films, just coming up with stories that would be fairly simple to tell, not huge budgets required. So I had a rough kind of outline and script, and then I put it on the back burner forever. But it was a real passion project, something I'd always wanted to do. So finally, I get the right people together. I've got the right locations, and I went for it. I found the right DP, Kevin Almodovar, who is amazing, talented, and he's always willing to help. So we all pitched in and got it done. So imagine, having a little baby idea over 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden it comes to life. You're like, oh my goodness, this is the prettiest baby I've ever seen.
So, James, how did you hear about this, and what made you want to be a part of the project?
I got a message from Nick a year prior to shooting, and he said, "Would you be interested?" And he didn't even have to say what it was. I was interested in working with Nick. But he sent me the script, and I read it, and I couldn't stop laughing. And I thought, okay, yes, I can kind of hear this character in my head, and I can hear the others. And I said, yes, let's go. And so it was a number of months later, but we got around to it, and the stars and the planets aligned, and we jumped in and did it, and it was just so much fun. It was just too much fun to do. Yeah.
Thomas, same question.
I'm terrible at this. I always forget how things unfold. It just happens. It's like my birth. I don't remember it, but it happened. No, I remember getting a message. I believe it was Alicia who reached out to me and was like, "Hey, are you interested?" And I, at this point, can't even remember if I auditioned or not. It was like, "Oh, you need to do an accent." And I was like, "Which one? which one do you need me to do?" And I got the script. I don't even remember if I recognized it was a comedy. I was just like, I like this guy. He's weird. Let's be him. Let's be the weird guy. Weird down a tier for sure from the governor. I don't remember what James' character was officially. A congressman, parliament.
I was a minister, a British.
Oh,
yes, from the House of Commons.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Minister. That's what I remember. Those are the only lines I remember. Minister. Are you sure? It's all coming back. It only took a year for the lines to stick.
Oh, good, Thomas. Good.
Yeah, and I just hanging out on set with friends, making art. That's the dream right there.
No,
and there was pizza.
Most importantly, we had pizza. Always a very welcome addition to any set.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah, and the cool thing is about our filmmaking community specifically is a lot of us will pay it forward, in that, like if someone helps another person out on their project, then they usually return the favor. So it's like, years ago, Nick helped me with the Parker syndrome, and then, I helped him with Ask Astrid, and whenever he asked me to help out with this, the answer was instantly yes, because I knew that he's going to have a good cast. He was going to have a good crew. The set was going to be smooth. And it was. And I was talking with James and Thomas before we started. My highlight from that whole weekend. So I was a grip, and we filmed the first scene of the day. We filmed outside of the museum in Pensacola, and it was really sunny. And Kevin asked me, he's like, "Hey, could you hold this giant thing over my head so I can see the viewfinder?" So I'm just like, there's a picture where I'm like, got my arm stretched like as far as I can go, and just holding it like right over Kevin's head. So I think that's the pinnacle of my career so far, as being Kevin's shade man.
Gave him the courtesy, as we
Courtesy,
call it.
yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, and Nick, tell me if you agree, like the set wasn't like, we didn't have a huge crew, but everyone like knew their responsibility, and it was a very smooth operation.
Very much so. Yeah, we had a limited space, a fairly small office we were filming in, and a living room. So we couldn't have a crew of 30. Right now in Nashville, I work with a crew of about 50 people. And if you can imagine 50 people trying to crowd in the little office, it just wouldn't have worked. So each project has its own kind of necessities and practicalities. But yeah, definitely everyone knew their job. Everyone knew the hierarchy. And I'm, as a director, I'm always open to ideas. I want to hear everyone's suggestions. I want everyone to have fun, but get, make their day, get the work done. I think I was giggling through the whole thing because I was enjoying what Thomas and James were doing so much. I just, hearing those lines come to life and hearing these guys say them, it was just a joy.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about one scene specifically. It takes place in the beginning of the movie where James and Thomas's characters are just, they're in James's office and they're having an exchange of dialogue. And James, I'll start with you. The fact that, you have to remember to speak in like a British accent, and it's like, it's a British comedy. How was that? How did you keep yourself from not just completely breaking character and laughing? Because I've like Nick, I found myself just like sitting in the corner, like
years of
like
practice, but no, there was so much that was so funny, throughout that. And that was one thing I think that Nick came to me for, because when I'm able, I can find my good RP, receive pronunciation and speak in that kind of melodic tone, and find that usually if I'm in trouble, I can speak like that. But no, that was just part of the fun of it. It was funny, and but that's just the thing. The art of the thing is doing it and holding your character and saying all those words. The speech that he gives, that I give, on my way into the office, is just, I've read it recently, and it's just hysterical, so I spoil it, but I was like, how did Nick think of this? Who did this? This is, and then I started hearing Nick's voice in that, and it's kind of jumbled up, and so it was a challenge to make sense of it and have it come out intelligible.
Well, and that's cool about, all of us that write scripts, and we can almost tell that this is definitely something that, like, say, Nick wrote. Like, when he sent me the script and I read it, I'm like, this is Nick's style. Like, this is something that I could totally see him envisioning in his head. So, Thomas, same question to you. How is it with you? Because you do all kinds of cool accents. I'll be honest. How is it for you maintaining that character through this whole, especially that long bit of dialogue that you have with James's character?
It was hard to remember which accent to have on sometimes. I won't lie. Like you said, I do a lot, and sometimes I slip from one to another, and I bounce around the spectrum. But it was fun, because I'm just sitting there, and I had to keep reminding myself it's a comedy, so at least react with timing at times. Timing at times, sure, we'll go with that. So it was a little bit more challenging to remember that, because I was like in my character's head so much that he wasn't finding anything funny. He was like, this moron over here is just gonna be Grand Admiral Throndoff over here and exiled out to the Empire. I went Star Wars. I'm not sorry about it at all. So it was just a lot of fun. I had more fun listening to James's accent and just the ostentatious. It reminds me of my Virginia congressman accent that I play around with. It's just, it's just lathering your ego up with an accent. And it was fun to sit there and listen. And every now and then I'm like, oh, I have lines. I should remember what those are. Otherwise, we might be here for a long day.
Something that, I always like to ask, especially us local filmmakers, because we all, know each other, have gotten to know each other fairly well. I always enjoy hearing like the fun or funny moments that happen on set. And there were some with this film as well. So, Nick, is there one in particular that sticks out to you as far as, like a funny or a memorable moment?
Oh my goodness. The one that pops in my head is, we hadn't got into the location before we filmed the office scenes. So it was kind of like Spinal Tap, where they order the Stonehenge and it's 6 inches instead of 6 feet or something. So we'd seen these pictures, and like real estate pictures, they use wide angle lenses, they make the rooms look bigger, and we thought it might be a little bit smaller than we expect. It was tiny. So Kevin was thinking, how am I going to work in these conditions? And we really had to kind of
Cozy.
like use it. So yeah, we made it as more awkward because the characters were close to each other, especially when James's character comes and sits on the couch with Thomas and they're up like this. We incorporated it. So rather than seeing it as an impossible challenge, we used it to improve the story. So, there was never any kind of upset with it, but it tickles me now to think that we were expecting something massive and we didn't get massive.
But in a way, it made it work better because that dynamic wouldn't have been there. And that's something that is important for filmmakers to know, is sometimes you do have to work with what you have.
Yeah.
But it can also be an advantage because it can add something that you may not have included in the original story. So, James, what about you? Any particular funny moment or memorable moment that sticks out to you?
I think the next day, the moment that sticks out to me happened the next day in Nick's house, when my character is on the sofa with his wife, with Daphne, and he's trying his best to say all the right things, and all the right things come out absolutely wrong. And she kind of storms out of the room and down the hall and slams the door, and here I am giving the movie away. But it wasn't planned, but there was a moment when I was talking to her, I was trying to get her attention, and I was listening, trying to hear, and I could hear people in the back giggling, or trying not to giggle, and that just, that sticks out in my mind as, not a nonverbal, it was just in character, for the moment.
Thomas, same question.
If I'm not mistaken, I kept standing up so aggressively out of the chair on my storm out scene that I kept having to catch it with my legs while standing and continue delivering the lines, because the first 3 times the chair fell and just bang. It's like, well, we can't use that take because Thomas ruined the audio again. And that's the one that stands out to me, because the rest of it was just work. I mean, it's a funny script, so.
Yeah. No, I remember that moment very well. I remember you also trying to toss the paper airplane into the trash can.
Yeah. I got one out of 100.
You did. That was all you needed. Because
Right. Yeah.
Nick sent me the movie and I went back and watched it. And just seeing the paper airplane made me laugh and think of that specific moment. But I think it's a testament, to you guys and everybody else that was involved with the production. It was a really fun but very efficient environment, and I think it shows in the final product. Because, like I said, Nick sent me a copy of the movie, and I've been really interested in seeing it since we filmed it, because we filmed it, I think, right before we did the feature, and it was really fun. It's a different style of movie than what I'm used to, but that's the beauty of what movies are. You can watch something that's action packed, and then you can watch a drama, and then you can watch a fun British comedy.
A British comedy filmed in Pensacola on Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah.
British transposed.
Yes. Nick, do you think there are, not to give away the ending, I'm not going to do that,
Sure.
but do you think there are more stories to tell with these characters?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially James's character, he's so pompous. We love seeing
What did
pompous
you say?
characters.
No, no.
I'd actually like to see how Miles Spinetti, his character, got where he is. You know, how did this flawed person get to this high level of government? That's the story I'd like to film next.
I think it could make an interesting, maybe like 4 to 6 episode little series.
Mhm. The rise of Miles, and of course his speechwriter would be there, played by Thomas, and his wife would be there too. So
Absolutely.
you have all the characters in the prequels.
Just call it
I think we're
Miles.
onto something. I think we're onto something.
Just in big, like, gold letters. Miles.
Yeah, Miles goes Miles. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Policy's 13.
What about you, James? Do you think there's more meat on the bone with your character?
Oh, I absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned, the prequel kind of stuff, but then going forward there would be a lot as well, because what happens, there would be a lot of fallout to have to deal with, and plenty of twists and turns to take, as the British would do. There would be a stiff upper lip and carry on, and they would. And I think Miles would absolutely.
Thomas?
Yeah, this is the inciting incident for a feature. You know what I'm saying? Like this, it gets to a point and you could just see title card. And then from there, the story continues. I don't know how long it is. You know more than I do, Derek. So I really do think that there's like a whole, I love the idea of a prequel, because you can have like the years leading up, and then you have that moment where it all changes for everybody. And then you could have a series after. You could have maybe multiple series, and we'll call the second one the O'Shea Chronicles.
I like that. O'Shea is just such a cool name to say. It just flows off
is.
the tongue so well. Yeah, and I think that's one cool thing about making a short film, is that we invent these characters, and then we think, well, what could we do more, or could there be more? Because I've even thought what could happen with the characters from the feature. Like that could be a 4 to 6 episode series all in itself, either leading up before, or just kind of expand what was done in the film. So that's always a fun thing to visualize. Like, could this be more? Because the three of doing a short film is not easy, because we all come up with so many ideas, and then we have to cut them down, and then cut them down some more, and then probably trim a little bit more fat off. So it's always tough. It's always tough. But Nick, what's next for you? Do you have, I know you said you're in Tennessee working on other projects. Do you have any other shorts in the works?
I do not. I do have another feature which I'm supposed to be filming in Miami. It's called Hop In. It's another comedy. It's about a bus driver and all his crazy passengers. So you might see some familiar faces popping up as eccentric passengers on this bus.
Ooh.
Interesting. James, what about you?
I have a couple of projects coming up. One that will shoot locally next week here in Pensacola, and then another one that I can't really say much about just yet, at the end of the middle of June, latter half of June, that will be shot in Fort Walton. So I'm staying busy. I'm finding stuff, and stuff is finding me. Thank you, Nick, for finding me. Finding me again.
Thomas, what about you?
I've got a couple of voiceover things popping up soon for an audio drama, for the Power Rangers audio drama. I get to be a character that is on for more than 30 seconds, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a bad guy, so finally. And then I've also I'm working with Alicia Marie coming up on a holiday film. And I feel like yes, I'm actually writing a horror script right now, and I've been stuck
Ooh.
in the character development hell, if you will, for one character, because I just keep finding so much more depth, and I'm like, how am I going to fit this into the maximum 30 minutes I want this to go? So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. You know how it is.
That's always the challenge.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can check out Home Policies and another film that Thomas was involved with that he actually starred in, wrote it, directed it during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Probably the greatest name I've ever heard for a film, Toilet Paper Jesus, which is amazing. It's amazing as the title sounds. How do you feel about that, Thomas? Now, what, 3 years later?
Yeah. Oh my God, it is. Yeah, I submitted it and I was like, they'll get to watch it again. I'm not gonna get selected. And so when it got popped up that it was selected, I was like, oh my, I have to like go back and rewatch it because I don't actually remember what happens anymore. So it's amazing. Very humbling, and the movie definitely holds up. There's only like a few things in there that I'm like, yeah, I wish I could change, like this one shot, this one audio edit, this one. All right, so there's a few things I'd probably change for sure. But I think it still holds up, and it definitely captures the insanity of the news cycle. I mean, all the time, but definitely during the height of the pandemic, because I fit in a lot of dumb references that, looking back, I'm like, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was the same way when I went back and watched it when you sent it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this was in there, and like, oh yeah, this happened, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So I think it's also a good reflection of that time because it really was that insane.
Yeah, just like me.
but things are a lot better now. But guys, thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat on Home Policies, and hope to see you at the Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you, Derek. I love your pretty face.
Thank you again to Nick, James, and Thomas for that fantastic conversation and that look back at the making of Home Policies. Always a fun time to be on a film set, whether it's something that I've written and directed or a friend's project. Always a fun time. It's like, I feel like I'm at home when I'm on a film set, and hopefully it'll get to happen again sometime really soon. But if you want to check out the premiere of Home Policies, the second screening of the feature, as well as 5 other short films, we have a total of 7 films that are being shown at this Saturday's Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social. Click the link in the show notes, or you can head over to facebook.com/SoDiamondEvents to get your tickets. As far as the podcast, next week is the season finale of the Derek Diamond Experience, and I'm going to be doing a special live AMA Ask Me Anything this upcoming Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, live here on YouTube. Just head over to youtube.com/@DDiamondPodcast. Be sure to subscribe so you get the notification when the show goes live. I'll be taking questions in advance. I'll also be taking live questions from the chat. Going to be talking about, of course, the screening of the feature as well as the other films that are being shown. Probably talk about the new Little Mermaid live action adaptation that's coming out this upcoming Wednesday, which I'll be seeing. I believe it's an early access screening on Wednesday night, so I'll be talking about it. But that's the cool thing about AMAs. You can literally talk about anything. So be sure to join us. And I do have a surprise for I'll say the listeners, because it's an audio only surprise that you'll get on the feed during the summer. So be sure to tune in this upcoming Sunday for the live show to find out what that will be. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, head over to linktree.com/DDiamondPodcast if you want to follow me on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or subscribe to the audio version. And also, please leave a review. The more reviews the show gets, the more visible it is to the podcasting public, those that are searching for filmmaking podcasts about movies. The more reviews the show has, the more likely it is to pop up for people who are searching for those kind of podcasts. So if you could leave a review, I would very much appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. Hope to see you this weekend at the Gulf Coast Film Fest and Social, and we'll see you on Sunday for the season finale of the Derek Diamond Experience podcast.